So Studio 54 is a moment of emergence for queer culture and in a way acceptance in the mainstream, more so than it had been before. I'm Matt Tyrnauer. I'm the director of Studio 54, which is the first feature documentary ever made about the legendary nightclub that helped define the 1970s. The club culture, and especially the queer club culture, was underground mostly, and Studio was one of its first immersions above ground because it was a mainstream, if very hard to get into, iconic night spot in the most important city in the world. Ian Schrager, who's the surviving co-founder of the club, is still around and for the first time was willing to tell his story, which is a very significant backbone of the film. And we had a great bit of luck in that we found a few hours of 16mm archival film that was shot inside Studio 54. It really helped us put together a look and a perspective on the nightclub that had never been seen before. Ian Schrager as a subject is a very rich subject, but I think he was uncomfortable at first because he hadn't talked about what for him is a very difficult story. The Studio 54 narrative is one that had a bad ending, really. Schrager finally decided that he was willing to talk about it. So there's always a challenge when you're approaching material that's sensitive to your subjects, and I think getting them to open up and talk freely and openly and candidly about these things is always a particular challenge. For me, a deep dive into any culture or closed system, which the nightclub world of New York in the 70s certainly is a fascinating thing. It was really interesting for me to explore what seems like a world that's very distant. It was the last gasp of the analog world. You get a kind of full picture of a society and a culture that has ceased to exist, but also reminds us of so much of what we confront today and so many of the elements of our world today.